Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Matt Taglia, Senior Director of Emerson College Polling. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
The last time you talked, I was just telling you this, was after the Trump assassination attempt, but before President Biden dropped out. That was less than a month ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago. And since then, Emerson College has a new poll out showing Vice President Kamala Harris beating Donald Trump. So what are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, you're right. It feels like a lifetime ago since we last spoke. And previously in July, we saw that President Biden was losing some support, especially among some of these traditional Democratic voters, independents. It was looking increasingly difficult for the Biden campaign. So this is a significant change for the Democrat at the top of the ticket, which is now Harris, of course. So she's leading by 4 points. And this is among likely voters. So compared to July, Trump was leading among likely voters by 1 point ahead of President Biden. So that's a net shift of about 5 points. That is very significant. And I think that we're seeing mostly a move away from undecided and third party candidates. So in July, undecided was at about 11%, which was pretty high. That's now 5% among likely voters. And we also see Kennedy support dropping from 6% to 4% and some other tail off in the third party candidates. So not necessarily, there is a little bit of movement away from Trump, but it's more so, I think, the undecided voters now making a decision and choosing between these two candidates.
When you and I last spoke less than a month ago, it was a completely different race. Now Harris is on top of that ticket with a net shift of 5 points in this race. Is that more of an indictment on Trump or excitement for undecided voters about Harris?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that we do see some evidence of excitement, or at least a reinvigoration among some of these voters who we would normally expect to support a Democrat at the top of the ticket. So younger voters, ethnic minorities, these are some of the folks that we traditionally see voting Democrat. They were also among some of the least decided and some of the least enthused voters. We don't see necessarily a huge differential between Trump voters and Harris voters in terms of their enthusiasm. Harris does have a very slight edge, but it's not something that I would necessarily flag and say, hey, to the Trump campaign, you have a problem. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but absolutely, this is starting to look much more like 2020 than it was previously. So, yeah, I think I don't think it's an indictment of Trump or necessarily defection away from him. Again, I think it's a lot of these undecided voters, people who were sitting on the bench, so to speak, who are now breaking out for Vice President Harris.